The date is August 2nd, 1964. In the Gulf of Tonkin, 19 degrees north and 106 degrees east, the American destroyer, the USS Maddox, was performing a standard signals intelligence sweep. When the distinct shape of three North Vietnamese torpedo boats detached from the coast and headed straight toward the USS Maddox. The torpedo boats fired upon the Maddox and a sea battle ensued. During the course of combat, 4 Navy fighter jets, specifically 4 F-8 Crusaders, joined the fray, and eventually between the combined firepower and efforts of the destroyer and the planes, the torpedo boats were defeated. 10 North Vietnamese soldiers were killed or wounded, and the U.S. endured no casualties. The destroyer was hit only by a single 14.5 mm round originating from a turret upon one of the torpedo boats. And only one of the U.S. aircraft was damaged by flak. 2 days later, on August 4th, 1964, another attack supposedly occurred upon the Maddox in a very similar location. But at a later date and time, the government openly admitted no attack had occurred. It was a hoax. There was only one attack. This was on August 2nd, 19. The United States government only learned about this military incident via a call made from the Maddox by Rear Admiral George S. Morrison, who was the commanding officer aboard the destroyer at the time of the attack. The U.S. government's response to this blatant act of aggression was the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. This is what started the Vietnam War. Following this military catastrophe, President Lyndon B. Johnson wrote up the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution and proposed it to Congress. As said by President Johnson.
My fellow Americans, as President and Commander-in-Chief, it is my duty to the American people to report that renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply.
And
in the larger sense, this new act of aggression aimed directly at our own forces again brings home to all of us in the United States the importance of the struggle for peace and security in Southeast Asia.
And in conclusion,
it is a solemn responsibility to have to order even limited military action by forces whose overall strength is as vast and as awesome as those of the United States of America. But it is my considered conviction, shared throughout your government, that firmness in the right is indispensable today for peace. That firmness will always be measured. Its mission is peace.
following his speech on August 7th, the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution was passed with a vote of 88-2. On August 10th, the resolution was enacted and airstrikes began on North Vietnamese military encampments. The resolution allowed the president to have troops in Vietnam until the president felt there was peace and security in Southeast Asia, more specifically South Vietnam. This aggressive action was allowed because the government viewed it as stopping the spread of communism. This meant the president could have troops fighting in North Vietnam indefinitely. For 7 years after it was passed, the resolution served as the basis of both President Johnson's and President Nixon's military policies. Due to the war's unpopularity, Congress repealed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution in 1971 because the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution was the source of the Vietnam War. Following the conclusion of the war, on April 30th, 1975, Congress decided that the President had far too much power when it came to military matters. Congress believed that if the power to declare war and perform military action was placed in the hands of any one person, further war and further needless death could not be prevented. Especially due to the war's extreme unpopularity, Congress decided to pass the War Powers Act to prevent something like the Vietnam War from happening again any time in the future. The War Powers Resolution transferred the ability to declare war and start military action on foreign soil from a sole presidential power to a joint power between Congress and the President. After the bill was passed by both the House and the Senate, it ended up being vetoed by President Richard Nixon. However, this particular presidential action did not have any significant political after effect because Congress immediately overrode the veto and enacted the joint resolution into law on November 7, 1973. This forever changed the power balance in the United States because it was a direct amendment of the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, which listed the powers given to the President. In the many years since the War Powers Act was signed into law, it has been used in many influential and politically important ways. Some of the most notable actions which are justified by this act are the U.S.'s engagement in Somalia, specifically Mogadishu, and the U.S. campaign in Afghanistan to stop the Al-Qaeda and stop terrorism. Furthermore, this document has been used as justification for every major U.S. military action in the past 40 years, whether it be drone strikes in Libya, covert military operations in Somalia, or a war on terror throughout the Middle East. It all links back to this document and the Vietnam War. In conclusion, the attack upon the USS Maddox led to the creation of the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which authorized military action in Vietnam. Following the war, this resolution led to the creation of the War Powers Act, for Congress believed that the President wielded too much power when it came to military matters, so they transferred the power to declare war from the President to both the President and Congress. Thank you.